Ned? Ned Ryerson? Welcome in to the Bro 4 Squad podcast, where we are just a bunch of bros drinking beer and talking movies. This is episode 219. I am your host, the mayor, Jeff Hornacek. Thank you guys so much for joining us for the movie discussion tonight. Before we get started, let's go around and meet my fellow bros. We begin with our legal counsel, Ronnie Cycli. Ronnie, what grounds do we have to sue Sony for simply releasing Madam Web into theaters? I mean, isn't this a public safety risk?
Yeah, absolutely. It's like yelling fire in a crowded theater. You can't get away with this. You know, some people are just with their kids innocently thinking, hey, let's just go to the movies. This looks like fun. Oh, Madam Web. Hey, that clearly is related to Spider-Man. I can't wait to see how it relates. And then what happens over the next 2 hours is something that the child will have to live with and be scarred with the rest of their life. Yeah. And in all honesty, it's probably going to be a short life because they don't want to continue living with that.
I mean, it's an Eighth Amendment violation of cruel and unusual punishment. Clearly. Sony has taken Guantanamo Bay prisoners, and they were like, you know what? You might have committed a capital crime, but it's not bad enough to have to sit through Madam Web.
See, that's the obvious. I would argue that it's a violation of the First Amendment. It violates our freedom of speech.
What?
It's disgusting.
Oh, okay. All right, next we go to mad scientist Brian Banner. Banner, if given the proper amount of time, money, and alcohol, could you create a Howard the Duck in your garage?
Probably. Like with just what I have laying around?
Well, yeah, if you were given the resources of time, money, and alcohol, would you be able to creatively do it?
Oh, 100%. 100%.
Why haven't you? Because you have all of those things.
Yes, I do. I had a thing. Sorry.
Oh, shit. That sounds legitimate and real.
Yeah. You know.
Well,
busy.
Honestly, the hardest part is probably getting a duck. Because you probably can't create one from scratch, right?
You could use like an old platypus, you know, something with the flat
tail. An old platypus. Like a platypus that's just lying around.
Have you been to Banner's house? There's definitely a platypus.
Well, yeah, hold on. I have more question. If you're using an old platypus, where's the new platypus?
We're not going to use that
in your living room, of course.
Yeah.
You have him out for display. Yeah.
God, you're asking dumb questions, man. All right, for the two people that haven't tuned away, here on the Bro 4 Squad podcast.
We derailed really quick tonight.
Once I hear platypus talk, I click out of any podcast. Here on the Bro 4 Squad podcast, we start every episode off with the most important thing in any bro's life. That is chest day. Our chest day topic today, as you could probably tell from the movie title or the episode title here, we are doing our 7th annual Movie Madness tournament. So every year we've had this podcast. Starting in March, we always emulate what the NCAA basketball tournament does and put together our own bracket with a different theme, movie-related, every single year. And this year, that theme is awful comic book movie madness. So, Cycli, I'll turn it over to you first just to give people kind of the idea behind this. I think Geiger originally came up with this, and then we kind of took the ball and ran with it. But what are we doing this year? What is the I guess the motif or the description behind what awful comic book movie madness is?
Well, if you've listened to us on the pod enough, you know that some of us, more than others on this pod, are really sick in our enjoyment of terrible, terrible movies. And when we always think about what fun comparisons we can make with these type of movies and genres, this year it was about, we had a lot of good run for superhero movies the last 15 years, and the last few years has not been as such. And now we're kind of saying maybe we need to slow it down a little bit. And we're kind of getting a lot of bad ones, but not only just bad in the movie sense, but impactful on the cultural sense, like we're getting with Madam Web and Morbius and the few others we'll talk about tonight. So this is just a fun way to compare some movies that really made you question how this got greenlit.
Yeah, and before I turn it over to Banner for the criteria that we will be judging this tournament on, because tonight we're going to actually draw the 8 competitors and see who will be facing off against who. This is a tournament of futility, meaning when two movies are pitted against each other, the movie that will advance based on our criteria will actually be what we deem to be the worst movie. So by quote unquote, yeah, basically, Yeah, but lowest score wins. By quote unquote winning this tournament, you're actually the loser. So you want to go out in the first round or as early as possible, because if you advance, that means you suck hardcore. Speaking of what they will have to do to advance, Banner, we're going to leave several of these matchups up to fan votes on either our YouTube page and or Twitter/X. But Banner, why don't you tell people when we are judging these matchups, what the 3 criteria we will be using is to determine which film is worse in our minds?
Yeah, so we obviously have our Bro4 Squad criteria for movies and TV shows, and we try and keep to that same pattern or those same criteria as best we can when we do things like this. So this tournament, we have 3 categories. You lose 1 or win 2. You lose you lose.
If we say your movie gets this category awarded to it, that is bad. If you get 2 out of the 3 awarded to you,
okay,
you lose, which means you move on.
Gotcha. All right. The 3 category are box office or box office potential. If if this is a movie that we said, hey, should we make this? How much money could it make? At least logically. 2.
So in my head, and tell me if you guys want to do this a different way, but when we're looking at the movie, it's like the whole point is kind of why did they make this? So if we look at a film, and obviously we have the advantage of hindsight, which makes it a little harder, but for box office potential, I think I'm going to be like, who in the room at the studio that greenlit this was like, I think this can make us money. Like, why this idea? Yeah. Especially because a lot of these movies cost like $100 million. Like, who the fuck in the room's like, bro, that's a drop in the bucket. We're going to easily make that back with Howard the Duck.
That's opening weekend, brah.
Exactly. That's a slow Tuesday for this motherfucker.
All right. Second category is our plot or script. Again, what is this movie about? Why was this a good idea? Why does this story need to be told? Right?
Yeah, and like if you're a studio, you're making one movie. You get one bite at the apple. Like, this is the script that you went with. And Cycling brought this up earlier. I thought this was a joke on Twitter, and then one of you guys was like, no, that really happened. The writers of Morbius did Madam Web. Like, who the fuck is like, let's get those guys. Bring them back.
That's actually really impressive that they were able to retain jobs.
Yeah. For those guys, kudos.
And they did it again, and they probably did it worse.
Because then you have like what were the guys who did Game of Thrones? Is it
R&R and Weiss?
Yeah,
they got Star Wars.
They literally had all this like potential. And they just got blocked. Like Hollywood and everyone was like, hey, you know what? We do not want to touch you, actually. No Star Wars for you. No anything for you. How did the Morbius people get away with it? D&D, whatever their names were.
Good for them, though. Like, and again, they somehow made a worse movie, I think, in Madam Web. I mean, well, obviously,
which is impressive.
Right. So there's almost like, hold my beer, we can do worse. So yeah, that's plot and script, really. It's like, we're going to try and watch all these movies. Because this IMDb plot synopsis alone, I don't think will do justice for a lot of them.
Absolutely not. And our third is the cast. Obviously, if you have a better cast, that is bad or a good thing in this tournament. I don't understand the scoring, but we're judging you on cast too. Which has the better cast?
No, so like for casting, there's a movie like Jonah Hex. Okay, you get Josh Brolin and John Malkovich in the lead roles. If that goes up, so that's a superhero movie where at least you say we're putting our effort into getting talent in here.
An up-and-coming Megan Fox.
Yeah, versus maybe casting like Shaquille O'Neal and Judd Nelson as the hero and villain in your film.
I don't know.
That's why we need you on these matchups, Banner, because you're like, I'm not convinced that's as big a blowout as you think it is.
Look, I've died on a lot worse hills before.
And like Kat, again, I'm not to like bury the lead here, but Elektra, right? A lot of things wrong with that movie. I do not think Jennifer Garner is a problem in Elektra. I'm not joking.
Yeah, no, I know. I'm thinking of all the worst ones. Like Catwoman, Halle Berry. Is she the issue? Like
definitely
we can.
Not.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Elektra.
Now Jared
is gonna
Leto
have to-
is always the issue though. So
That is
that
true.
one 100%.
That is true. So the casting, again, it's the worst casting. Or like the people in this movie, why did we think this was going to work based on who you put in the lead roles? All right, so that's the 3 criteria. But again, we'll also leave a lot up to fan vote. And even though Brian says he doesn't understand it now, by the end, he'll probably be making the most lucid points of any of us when we're comparing these. All right, I'm going to draw from a cup here. I have 8. I think it's fun because our fans, I mean, we teased a few of them, but they don't exactly know the 8 movies. So,
And
have,
we don't seed. That's another thing we need to preface with our tournament. We don't pre-seed our matchups 1 through 8. What we do is we put them in a hat and you draw, and that's your matchup. We have had some movies that I personally thought would have won, except they got a bad matchup in the first round.
Yeah, it's a very pro and con I feel about this because a lot of times I already was messaging you, Jeff, about this. Like, there's some movies I'm like, they need to be on opposite sides of the bracket. But you know what? That's the point of this game. Like, right? Like, hey, you don't know what's going to be dealt at you.
This is
Gotta
why
bring
we
it.
play the games.
Got to
it's like
bring
that
it.
year in the NCAA tournament that the NCAA like rigged it to where Michael Beasley and OJ Mayo played in the first round, even though like that should not have happened.
OJ Mayo. Wow.
But this, to Banner's point, with us not preceding it, we don't get to weigh in on any of the strengths or weaknesses of any of these before. It's just happening live and organically. I've named these 2 regions the shit region and the also shit region.
Wow.
So we'll have
I thought you were going to go
2
with
matches.
ass.
I almost went shit and poop, but I thought that would be too obvious. All right, the first movie in our tournament is Madam Web. I don't know if you see that.
Wow.
Wow,
Right.
number 1 seed.
See, you're going to tell me this isn't rigged? The movie that just came out that is all over the internet just happened to be the first draw.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
Recency bias, Madam Web. The next movie that will be
gonna
facing
be
off against
Morbius.
Madam Web
If
is
I'm Morbius, I'm out. I'm walking
it's
out of here.
Catwoman.
Wow.
Wow, okay.
Two female leads here
So
going.
Cycly, just
I
to
hope
be
it doesn't
clear.
get catty.
All right, that's the show.
All right.
So Cycly, just to be clear, the 2 that you might have already mentioned this, but the 2 that you wanted to be separated on the opposite sides to potentially meet in the championship, was that Madam Web and Morbius?
Yeah, mainly because it goes both ways. They either needed to meet early, like first round, or at the end, just because of the similarities between how much has been panned, cultural impact of how much the internet has just bashed these movies, how much of a meme they become, and the fact that it's the same writers. They're too similar, and so that's why they either belong together immediately or belong as far away from each other.
It's going to be hard for them to. I mean, this is going to be a gauntlet for each of them to go through.
Yeah.
To get to each other.
I feel like they can do it.
So real quick thoughts, Banner. Again, you don't want to don't spoil too much because obviously we might get into it on one of these episodes soon if it's not a fan vote. But anything about this Madam Web Catwoman matchup that jumps out to you?
Actually, the cast a little bit. All right, you got a red hot Halle Berry for Catwoman, and you got Sydney Sweeney and Dakota Johnson for Madam Web. I mean, obviously, Halle Berry is a phenomenal actress, and the others are fine.
Sydney Sweeney has really really good qualities, I think.
Yeah. Which, if you attended the Broskers, you.
Well, that's in the future when this drops.
Oh, okay.
Oh, I guess it's tape. No, it's tape delay. You're right.
Yeah, tape delay.
Yeah, we can't have Geiger out there alive.
This one, this will be interesting with cast because again, I think they're both competently cast. At least not near as bad as somebody like that's not the biggest problem with either of these films. I think we can agree.
No, and on paper, I think the casts are very comparable.
And if we're talking box office potential, I think it's very defensible to greenlight a Catwoman movie. Like Cycling said earlier, though, Madam Web, like, okay, we have reached the bottom of our Spider-Man IP that we purchased from Marvel, if that's what's getting greenlit.
Yeah, I'm intrigued on the just the the script, the writing overall, and performance. Because I mean, I think that's what, again, like your point about casting. The casting isn't the problem. I think Sharon Stone is also in Catwoman.
Yeah, she's Benjamin Bratt.
You know, like it's that's not usually the issue with these movies. So very convoluted, pointless plots. And and even a good actor can be shit, and we've seen that plenty of times. So these movies have a lot in common, actually, just in a nice little Marvel versus DC too.
Yeah,
Oh,
that'll be
didn't even think of that. That'll be a good one.
All right, the second matchup in the shit region, where we'll just call them winners, or the person who advances. So the person who advances from the Madam Web Catwoman matchup will face the person who advances from this matchup. First movie is Morbius.
Oh wow! Wait, are they on opposite side of the bracket or underneath
No,
each
this
other?
is same side, just like how Greg Gumbel reveals them.
Got it.
I mean, we could rig it if you want, but already announced it.
No, we are a little more reputable than the NCAA, I would like to think. So,
I mean,
Which is wild to think about.
we're a cleaner organization,
not even much of a compliment. Or
more
anything, yeah.
transparent.
That's true. Morbius will face off against Jonah Hex, which I think might have one of, if not the best, actually good cast in this whole tournament between John Malkovich and Josh Brolin.
Yeah.
Cycly, we'll go to you first. Anything jump out about this matchup to you?
I think
at the top we have a female matchup. Here we got a pretty alpha male testosterone heavy matchup.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the biggest thing going for this one is the recency bias on the impact of Morbius and Jonah Hex. I don't know what it came out like in 2010 or something. I don't know that it's relevant. I mean, and maybe that's a testament. Like Catwoman is so bad, it's still known today.
Yeah.
Was Jonah Hex bad enough that it's still? I don't hear it talked about as much as like Pan movies when we know. And so this is going to be an interesting one. I have a tendency to believe Morbius might run away with this. I'm not saying it's an large favorite, but it will be interesting to see the fan vote to see if Jonah Hex is actually still in that brain of like bad comic book movies.
Yeah, and I'm gonna rewatch Jonah Hex because if I've seen it, it's basically been so long like I haven't, so I can actually weigh in on the script story of it. But the one thing I do think Jonah Hex is going to have a real issue with in this tournament is our first category, which is the box office potential.
Yes.
Who at DC says, "Ooh, Jonah Hex, that puts butts in the seats."
Yeah.
That,
Did anyone even see? I'm pretty sure when I looked this up, it made barely anything. So like
it was rough. I think actually Michael Fassbender's in that Jonah Hex too, as well. So that just adds on to the cast is strong, but it's like who wants a Jonah Hex movie? Who even knows what the fuck that is?
That's the biggest problem here with the box office is Jonah Hex. What superhero is that?
Yeah.
Oh no, let's do a big budget film on it.
Right. Okay. Moving on to the also shit region. Top movie there will be Blue Beetle.
Okay.
So again, like Cycly said, the impetus for this was really like the past few years, just a lot of odd IPs getting greenlit as we've gotten very over inundated with the superhero genre. And no offense, but maybe offense to Blue Beetle. That's one of those where like I get representation and all that, but that's one of those movies where it's like 10 years ago, no one ever would have dreamed that would get a big budget release. Blue Beetle will face off against Steel, starring Shaquille O'Neal. This is an interesting matchup. What do you guys think? Early returns here with Blue Beetle and Steel.
So I didn't see Blue Beetle. I might for this,
Ugh.
but I don't. I mean, maybe I
threw up
you know
in my
you.
mouth.
I know how you feel about it, but it wasn't panned by critics by any means.
No, definitely not.
And there was a lot of people I saw online that was like expecting something really bad, and it wasn't that. It doesn't have the cast power for sure, comparatively to some of these other bad movies, which is funny to say about horrible movies. But Ben, I know you didn't like it.
Not doing it for you, and George Lopez.
I mean, George Lopez does do it for me. So it was just the one thing, like I said, as someone who hasn't seen it, I expected it to be more just shit on. It didn't seem to get that other than Banner. I know how you feel.
I will say of the other movies in this tournament, this one is going to be a tough sell on that second category for plot. Going against it. It is somewhat coherent. It's still a little all over the place, and then there's a lot of other things wrong with the movie. But the story was somewhat coherent, and that's you can't go deep with a decent story.
Depending how you want to argue it, it might be able to get the edge on Steel with cast, but again, Steel has Judd Nelson and Shaquille O'Neal as its two leads.
Yeah, Shaquille O'Neal's acting. I mean, he tried some things here in the late '90s, and
It was fun.
Fun for us because we were kids. I don't think it. There's clearly not a lot of sustainability there, right? So.
And I'm watching the movie now, not like literally on my TV, but I'm halfway. I paused it. I'm at the halfway mark. And he is asked to. He is the lead in this. So like in Kazam, he's technically like the top build, but you know he's the genie, so he's off screen for a lot of the film. He's the guy here, like the emotional weight, and there's some like a heavy fucking emotional arc here. It's based on he's a U.S. Army someone who like basically discharges from the army because of corruption that he sees, and he has to deal with like a lot of like helping his friends cope with PTSD. Like they asked Shaq to really act in this thing, and
damn.
I don't want to say he's completely collapsed under the weight of it, but it's about what you would expect from a basketball
This
player.
one was an impressively low score on both IMDb and Rotten Tomatoes.
Tip of the cap, man. And when this thing starts off in the credits, they are all in your face with like DC Comics presents. There's a scene where they're in an arcade and there's a Batman Forever arcade game. Like,
well, that's fucking cool.
Yeah, DC was not shy about this being their property. All right, I will put together a bracket and have it linked in the description.
Well, hold on. Who's on top and who's on bottom of our last matchup?
That's right. So I thank you so much, and that's a great question and visual for us. And this visual is gross because Howard the Duck is on top of Elektra.
Oh, that's
I'd watch that.
I would watch that.
Yeah. So we have Howard the Duck, the first Marvel property ever made into a movie, and Elektra, starring Jennifer Garner, which of course is the sequel / prequel. I've seen it, and I still don't know, and no one online seems to know either if it's a sequel or prequel to Daredevil. So that'll be interesting. Elektra, I don't want to spoil too much, but I told Banner this just before the pod. It's actually kind of competently made. Like, I don't know why. It's not great, but like the way people talk about it online, you would think it's like the worst fucking movie ever, and I just don't see it. I actually think the script's pretty solid.
Now, Howard the Duck, on a why, I could almost come up with an argument because of the time frame that it came out of.
Exactly.
And kind of what it is. That's I can almost sell that.
Yeah, I guess
very
like
80s. Very late 80s.
It's just bizarre, and it's almost like a good thing to have in your cap for like a potential game show trivia question at some point. But like, that's the first IP that Marvel made into a theatrical release.
Well, look how it worked out for him. Howard the Duck waddled so Avengers could run.
Oh man, that's the quote of the night.
Jesus Christ.
I just think when I see Howard the Duck, I think in the current context, it's like, yeah, how did this get made? But man, the late 80s and early 90s was a weird time. Like, remember the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movies we had, the show Dinosaurs? We got a lot of, the Who Framed Roger, not exactly the same, but Who Framed Roger Rabbit, where we were getting like blend of
a lot of mascots.
A lot of mascots, but blending of normal life or, just generic real life with like animated characters, or Howard the Duck is like more of a puppet. I don't know what he is, like a mascot type thing. Like it wasn't so uncommon. And the 80s, they tried things. They were all on coke. So,
yeah.
I see it.
It's funny because he's shown up in, I think, all 3 Guardians of the Galaxy movies. And if you would have told your kid, like, that's actually the first Marvel movie ever made, and like, what, that thing?
Yeah. I need to see that. I'm mad that he wasn't the main villain in like Avengers.
It's a joke, man. He would have killed the Avengers so fast, it wouldn't have even been fun.
Does he have a superpower other than just being
a duck?
A human duck?
Not really. Banner, in the What If episode that he's in, does he do anything cool? He just kind of like gives them weapons, right?
Yeah, he's like a black market trader in the What If episode.
That's his superpower?
Yeah.
Well, does he have what's the Punisher's superpower? He just blows shit up.
Yeah, Punisher and Howard the Duck is a good comp, I think.
Just saying, both dudes.
We need a mashup of Madam Howard the Duck, Madam Web, and Web Feet Howard Duck. I don't know. There's something there.
I bet if you've Googled it at some point, they were in a comic together too, doing something.
That's the next movie. Someone in DC or Marvel is out there plugging this, or Sony is saying, "Hey, guy got an idea."
All right. Well, we now have the bracket set. Like I said, I will put them into a linkable bracket and put it in the description of this video. We'll do the matchups over the next few weeks. And
Howard the Duck caught in the web.
Oh, I like it.
My God, you have a gift.
Sorry.
So this will be interesting, and this will be awful comic book movie madness. Banner, before we move on, I just want to point this out because every year we're like proud of it, but serious PTSD. For our fans who don't know, at the very beginning of this podcast, in 2016 or 2017, whenever we started, we actually did a 64 movie bracket of all the comic book movies of all time. And while it was incredibly, it was over ambitious, we bit off way more than we could chew. I'm glad we did it in the end. We both said never again.
Never again.
And Geiger as well.
You could talk me into a 16 team. You could talk me into it, but 8. That's where it's at.
That's the sweet spot.
Yeah.
That was wild.
Those were there's probably 10 episodes on that tournament. Go back and listen to them. It's fun. Still relevant today.
If it's not a playlist on our YouTube channel, if you just search comic book movie madness, it'll all come up in sequence. It was a fun time, but
never again.
We learned a lot from it. Yeah.
Never again.
All right.
I won't even make an intern do that.
I know that'd be a good rite of passage. If they want the fucking college credit, they'll do it.
It's true.
All right, moving on to the second part of our show, our protein shake, where we go around, talk about what is in our cup, also known as what have we watched lately. Who wants to go first, nerds?
I'll go first.
All right, take it away.
I am going to, let's see. We'll start us off with a love story. I watched, I believe this was 2020, Love and Monsters.
Dylan O'Brien?
Dylan
Jessica
O'Brien.
Henwick?
Yep.
Haven't seen it, but interested.
It was fine. It was good. I liked it. Kind of a little whiny at times.
Oof.
Yeah. Jessica Hedwig, not nearly enough of her in it. Michael Rooker makes an appearance. Really good scenes with him. The CGI is incredible. The creativity of the monsters was good. Big problem I had, though, is probably about halfway through the movie, I started thinking, what would the sequel be called? And if they made a sequel, it has to be called Love and Other Monsters.
Like Love and Other Drugs.
Yeah, and I couldn't get it out of my head. It was it ruined the rest of the movie for me.
Is this like a post-apocalyptic world, or is it like something weird
Yes.
happens like on Valentine's Day? Okay.
No, this is a post-apocalyptic world. So in the first 5 minutes, you find out that an asteroid is coming to Earth, and in humanity's great brilliance, we shot a bunch of missiles at it, and they blew up the asteroid. So that's cool. But it rained down like chemicals, and those chemicals turned pretty much anything that's not human into like a giant monster. But it's mainly insects into monsters.
Oh shit! That's actually kind of a cool plot device.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. And then it's people are separated and trying to find each other.
Is it rated R?
I don't know.
Did this just get added to Netflix or something? Because I feel like I hadn't really
Yes.
heard of this, and then all of a sudden
I think I watched it on Hulu.
Okay, this is weird, and this Cycling and I talked about this I think a few episodes ago. How I don't understand licensing, because I am 90% sure this was a Prime original when it came out or when it was made.
wow.
Maybe, I don't know.
But of course it makes
That's
sense.
wild.
Universal takes all their original movies and they'll fucking whore them out for a few months. to other
Dude,
streaming services.
speaking of whoring them out, Super Mario Brothers has like been through the ringer, hung up wet, rode hard.
Yeah, that's
Jesus, it is on a different fucking streaming service every 3 days.
and DC does the same. Like The Batman was on Netflix for a little while.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, that's
Yeah.
like your crown jewel. Like, but I guess if Netflix,
I think it still is. I think it just got added, but I could be wrong.
they totally just like bent over, like whatever, just pay us $40 million for 2 months. You can have it. Kind of wild.
It was a Paramount Pictures straight to streaming.
Good job, Paramount Plus. You don't have it on your streaming service.
Yeah. So,
Ken, none of it makes any fucking sense. This is part of the cutting the cord problem. It's like you can't even guarantee me what content I'm going to get on. Like the movies that your literal studio made aren't on your streaming service. I don't know.
Remember when Disney Plus started and it was like half the movies they didn't even have for themselves. I'm like, oh, I can finally watch this movie again. Oh no,
Like,
we don't have the rights.
They would
to it.
advertise it's coming back this day, and you're like, oh, that's conveniently when Netflix told me it was the day before their last day I can watch it on theirs.
Wonder how that happened.
Snip, snap, snip.
Fun little fun fact about Love and Monsters. It was actually nominated for an Academy Award for Best Visual Effects.
Holy shit.
Yeah, and I agree with that.
Okay.
They were phenomenal.
So would you recommend it?
I would. It, like I said, it can get a little whiny in the middle, and like it's kind of it's fun. There's enough in it where I think it's worth it.
Okay.
And like
what
you
did
said,
you
the
say-
plot device was great.
What do you say it's streaming on? Even though, like, by the time we get off pod, it'll probably be in a different service.
I just looked it up. It said Netflix right now.
Okay, maybe it was Netflix. I honestly can't remember. I watched it last night.
Okay. Give it a poke. Cycly, what do you got?
I have a couple that you're going to be happy about. So I'll start with one of those. Last night I watched Missing.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, so that one you had, I think, been trying to get me to watch for a while. It just wasn't streaming anywhere for the longest time, and I was just lazy to do the work and go rent it from my library. So,
2024 Brosker Best Picture nominee, which will be our next episode. So a little tease right there.
yeah, so it got added to Netflix. So if you want to check it out, Jeff and I agree. I think on this is like the Screen Life type films. If you've never seen one, essentially it's not your typical movie. It's like you're watching it from a computer screen. Everything is based off like your cell phone, your computer. It doesn't move. The camera doesn't move at all. And at first I thought it was going to be really gimmicky when I think I saw the first, what was it, Unfriended maybe?
Yeah, probably.
I'm not sure what the first Screen Life movie was, but it was really surprising was how much they can do with such a limited amount of movement, and how much they can capture.
Sorry,
never thought,
real quick.
Yeah.
This is not a sequel, but it's in the same universe as the John Cho movie Searching, which came out a few years ago, which is another really good screen.
Yeah. So did that come out before Unfriended? I can't remember the order. I mean, I know Unfriended isn't related, but they're also Screen Life. So
yeah, it just leads to a lot of really creative directorial choices, like ways to transition scenes and things like that.
I think whichever first Screen Life movie I saw, I didn't think much of it. I thought it was going to be awful, or it'd be get old after a few minutes and just get frustrated with the way it's filmed. The most impressive things these films do is again, the amount of depth they're able to cover, and you're not distracted by oh, you're watching a FaceTime, oh, you're watching a Skype, oh, you're watching a security camera. You really kind of, the story, as long as the story is good enough, you kind of get involved in it, and it doesn't distract you like a lot of other gimmicky ways to watch film. This one was again similar to Searching, in the sense of that this is someone's lost a family member and it's doing what they can to find them themselves because the police are either inadequate or unable. And in this one, her mom, an 18-year-old's mom, goes missing with her boyfriend in Colombia, and not being able to communicate in Spanish with the police. The U.S. government can only do so much. One of the things I think I really liked about the movie was they took you down a lot of paths of suspicion without forcing you on a whodunit. You are obviously curious about what happened to the mom, but there's a lot of like opportunities of explanation, and they kind of go one by one into that process, and so that made the movie a little more entertaining. You're suspecting someone as the viewer, and he starts suspecting someone else, and they not only like tell you actually no that's not that person, but they like really go into the story on why or what happened with that. So um the more you think about these kind of films, sometimes they break down in like the plot or like honest like realness of it, but I don't think you need to watch these to be like true, you know, detective type stuff. It was just really fun overall. So I know you really liked it too, right?
Yeah, and I think the cool thing about the screen life genre is you would think like, well, it would seem impossible to build tension with that, right? Like the camera can't be in so many places and there's so many limitations, but I think it's actually the opposite. Like there's actually so many different avenues to build fear. And cyclically, there's one specific, I won't say what the scene is for our viewers out there, but there's a scene where like the camera that is on the screen is like slowly zooming in to like something in the background, and as that's happening, I remember my heart just being like in my fucking throat. I was like,
yeah,
oh my
I got
God.
the creeps a little bit. I was like, my wife is out of town. I was watching it alone at night, and you know how much of I'm a horror fan. And I wouldn't say these are scary movies by any means, but there is definitely an element of creepiness and eeriness. It's like kind of like that little bit of hair standing on the back of your neck type scary, not like
Yeah.
someone's gonna come in and kill me scary. So
And
Banner, I don't know if
this
you've
is
ever
the-
watched any of these.
I have not, but I think you guys just sold me on it. This sounds.
I think you would love it.
This sounds awesome.
I know,
and I know
Brooke
you've been
Banner would
trying to get
definitely
us.
love Missing.
Yeah, you guys have been trying to get us to watch the screen life movies like this for a while. I don't know. I've been hesitant.
I think
It's
I think
loosely
Unfriended
connected
2
to
is
searching.
Yeah.
Sorry. I was saying it's loosely connected to searching. You don't need to see it before, but there's some like cool nods to that.
Yeah, they reference it. Yeah, I would say. I mean, again, two of these franchises are not related, but it's such a limited type of way to film the screen life genre. I would say Unfriended 2 is probably my favorite
Dark
of
web
the genre. Yeah. Dark Web. That just like was really cool with what they did with that one. I remember seeing the trailer for the first Unfriended and being like, "This looks like crap," and then you told me to watch, and I was like, "Whoa!" But I don't necessarily think like screen life is going to become even bigger. I think it works in its limited amount that we've gotten it so far because it's able to keep that tension. But
Can
go
you
watch
do
Missing.
one of these like very wrong?
Oh yeah, I think it's not if you do it wrong. It's not even. It's like, oh, that's not a good movie. It would be painful to watch because of the way it's filmed, right? Like because everything you're watching is through a computer screen.
Yeah.
And no movement of camera. Like I could see if a movie isn't good that you just would rather turn it off or walk away.
And Missing, I think more so than Searching or either the two Unfriendeds, which I've all liked to varying degrees. I would agree with Cycling that I would probably go Unfriended 2, Missing, Searching, and the first Unfriended. But I think the thing Missing does more ambitiously than all the other ones is it actually utilizes a lot of different technologies in the film. All the other ones, to my knowledge, maybe Searching is a little different, but it's like almost in real time in one sit. I know the Unfriendeds are in real time in one sitting.
Yeah.
But Missing gets pretty creative with like where the camera comes from or like where the visuals come from.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it definitely takes place over a week or so.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And even then, like as a director, it's kind of hard to transition. Like if the whole thing's supposed to be seen from a computer screen, like how do I do like a 2-day jump or something?
Yeah.
So, Cycling, just last thoughts. How did you like it? I fucking loved it. I would nominate it for best Brosker. Do you think you're not quite on that level with it, or did you?
Yeah, probably not that high on it, but I really enjoyed it. I think I thought about the movie for a while when I went to bed last night, and like, so doing one of those things where you break it down almost too much. Be like, okay, well that part doesn't actually make sense, or like some of the stuff. Again, I don't want to give anything away. Some of the Columbia scenes don't really like hold up if you break it down for more than 5 minutes.
Yeah.
But no, like again, like in terms of entertainment and again the eeriness I felt watching it, that's what makes a good movie. And I it would be one I'd be like, hey, with my wife Robin Sparkles, like we should watch.
Yeah, that'd be a fun one to watch with like someone who hasn't seen it before.
Yeah,
try and
see what they're thinking because there's so many people you're suspecting.
Oh, I didn't trust anyone in that fucking movie.
No. I didn't even trust the
girl
main
whose
character.
Mom was missing. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, you like me to investigate that, wouldn't you, bitch? Nice. Okay, I'll do a couple of these quick. I've been doing a thing, trying to early on this year in 2024, where like gaps in my filmography, like really obvious movies that came out probably before I was born or like really of age to like kind of seek out movies on my own that I haven't seen. I'm trying to go back and revisit. And one of those movies was 1979's Alien, which I had never seen.
I can't believe you've never seen that.
Wow.
And but
insane.
I love most of the new ones. Like I love Prometheus. Like I think it actually might be in my top 100. Love Prometheus. Pretty big fan of Alien Covenant, and in a stupid way, I love the Alien vs Predator movie as well. Alien, of course, it's a top movie for a lot of people. Ridley Scott, one of if not his like coming out party films, and I really enjoyed it. Everything is practical in it, which this made me like miss the days where like the limitations of having to use practical effects, like I think brought out a lot of better results in like sci-fi and action films. I think Jurassic Park's a great example of that. Like,
yeah,
the visuals, like the limits they had actually ended up making for better set pieces.
Yeah.
And Alien is, I think, like right down that alley. The settings on the Romulus ship or whatever it's called, dark corridors, spotty lighting, fog, like you really hardly ever see the alien in full, and that's what makes it so fucking creepy and scary. This runtime flew by. It's high concept, but like not really. Like there's no plot in it where you're like, wait, what? Like everything you need to know, they pretty much explain for you pretty simply. I'm not much of a plot hole guy, but because this plot is so basic, there's just like a few decisions in the beginning, like, because obviously we have to get the alien onto the fucking ship. I get it. But there's just like a couple of moves where I'm just like, fucking really? Like you would do that? Whatever. I want to see the alien kill people. That's fine.
But like, either buy it or you don't, okay?
Exactly, yeah. Once you get past that, specifically Tom Skerritt's character, he fucked up bad. Once you get past that, it's like, all right, let's have a lot of fun with this. And every time the alien was on screen, I was pretty fucking creeped out because just like it looks like a fucking giant like beetle in certain instances, and it moves creepy, and it's always drooling and shit. I don't know, it's just awesome.
Do you know if ILM did that? I'm pretty sure they did the stuff for Alien also.
That's a really good question. I don't know.
I may be wrong, but
this would have been early days of ILM too, right?
Yeah.
Out of curiosity, Jeff, as someone who, like, again, has seen so many movies, thrillers, space movies, horror, whatever, watching it for the first time from your perspective, have you one like seeing like, wow, yeah, I'm getting like like how this movie has influenced the genre, references that you may have not realized were references to Alien, things like that, because it's such an iconic film that there's so much that was based from this.
Oh yeah, and you know, like one thing that I really think this like lent to other films have borrowed from, because it's such a creepy trope, and I don't have a better way to describe this than just like verbatim saying what it is, but it's like the character who is looking at something past the camera, and then we see the monster drop in behind that character.
So great. Yeah.
Alien like perfected that. There's a scene where a character's like trying to get a cat to come out to him, and the alien fucking drops down behind it. And I'm sure in '79 that's like a Scooby-Doo trope, right? But no one's ever seen that like done harrowingly in live action. They were probably like, motherfucker, he's behind you.
Yeah.
And Alien does that perfectly. Also, another really cool thing about this, the chest burster scene, which obviously is maybe like, aside from the scene where like the alien is like inches away from Ripley's face, that might be like the iconic scene.
Yeah.
I can imagine people in theaters like watching that being like, how did they do that? Like, did they literally have that thing rip out of that guy's fucking stomach? Like, I don't understand.
Yeah.
How is that even possible?
That's one thing I think that our generation and going forward is gonna lose is the way that like cinema and movies are advancing is all with computers now. Like we got to see these practical things like go from nothing and they go, okay, well, how do we make Alien? And then that goes, okay, well, how do we do Jurassic Park? And you see the difference in the computer and the puppets, right?
Yeah.
Everything now is just like, how more realistic can we make
Yeah.
this look.
I've mentioned it before. There's a movie called Cannibal Holocaust where after filming it, the part of the agreement was for those actors to basically disappear for a year. And so people watch the movie thinking they were killed in the movie because the movie it's still from the 70s too, and it was so graphically horrible.
Is that deemed as like the first found footage?
Yeah, I
movie?
think so. And
Oh,
like the
wow.
director was put up for murder in Italy. And these actors had to come out and like appear in court to be like, no, this was all part of a gag. Like we're alive. Like this is real. Like it's like now when you're not like questioning that. Like back then they were like, oh, they fucking killed and put a stake through these people. It was so real. Yeah. So that's something that I feel like as an audience we've lost. That sense of wonder and wow walking out of a theater.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Jeff,
Yeah,
have you seen, so this is a dumb question, but I'm assuming you haven't seen Alien 2.
No, I think I started with like Alien versus Predator, which obviously you're like, well,
Okay.
that's not a good way to jump in. But when I saw Prometheus, which directly ties into this movie because the Prometheus ship is the beacon that they actually get summoned to.
Yeah.
And they go in the Prometheus ship in this. When I saw Prometheus, my mind was fucking blown. I mean, first off, one of the most insane casts of the last 20 years that nobody talks about. But that movie just like Ridley Scott came back for it. And I was like, I haven't seen a Ridley Scott sci-fi movie that I liked because I'm not a big Blade Runner guy till that. But I was like, all right, I'm in, bro.
If this excites you, Alien 2 is probably up there with, one of the best sequels. Like there's only so many sequels that rival
That's the
its
James Cameron
original
one, right? Aliens.
Aliens, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. That's Hulu was like, you want to watch this next? I was like, I do, but not right now.
I need a break.
Yeah, I'll get to you in a second. One more thing before I toss it back over to Banner, just because cycling, I think this was, I'd never heard of this movie, and I was like, this is such a cycling movie. The 2001 slasher Valentine. Have you ever heard of this?
No, I don't think so.
Okay, so
Look it up.
the cast is like perfect for a slasher movie. It's actually the chick who plays Wendy Peppercorn, who ends up being in, I think, Scream 3. We have Denise Richards, David Boreanaz, Katherine Heigl.
Holy crap.
This is early 2000s slasher. The plot is these 4 popular girls from high school play a prank on some nerd at their school dance. 10 years later, they start turning up dead by this guy around Valentine's Day who dresses in a Cupid mask.
Oh, baby. 11% on Rotten Tomatoes.
Yeah,
I'm fucking
dude.
in.
It's not that bad, but like it's awful in all the ways that it should be. And then it gets really overly ambitious with the whodunit twist at the end. All the characters are caricatures. They're so disposable. There's some great kills. I think this would be an awesome commentary for us.
I need to watch this.
It's so fun. It really is. Because there's very few conversations in this movie, even like short snippets of dialogue where I'm like, oh yeah, people talk like that. Like very few conversations where you're like, that felt organic in how human beings interact with each other. But in a slasher movie, like the slasher movies have 2 goals with character introductions. They either need to make you hate someone so much to where you suspect them as the killer, or have someone be so utterly ridiculous that when they die, it's like laughable. And they crush both of those. There's one scene, that's kind of a spoiler. There's a scene though, I'll say this, where like a character dies in a very public setting and like no one happens to see it, but all their friends just assume that this character has left town instead of been murdered, like just behind their back. And so every time the police ask them, like, have you seen so-and-so? They go, she's probably out of town. Based on what? She said she was going to the bathroom.
Where else would she be?
She was going to the bathroom and never came back. Like, why would you assume she flew to Seattle? I don't get it. But Valentine from 01.
Oh, man.
Especially that time of year.
Yeah. What'd you say, Cycly?
I'm going to have to check it out.
Yeah, really fun. I think it's like an hour, 20 minutes. Quick watch, too. All right, Banner, what else you got?
All right, I've got our next action movie bingo movie here, The Retirement Plan. This is a fucking blast. Nicolas Cage, Ron Perlman, Ernie Hudson's in it. This is let me throw it out there. What do you guys think Nicolas Cage used to do?
Act.
Sell pot. Act. It's a-
In the
Sell-
movie.
Oh,
That's your answer?
financial
my
advisor.
Oh, no. He was a ex government agent who's retired now,
Mm.
and he comes out of retirement, right,
To steal the
Okay.
Declaration of Independence.
to steal the Declaration of Independence. No. His daughter's in some trouble, so he comes out of retirement to help save her. It's got
Rick
everything.
Fox is in this.
Wait,
Yeah.
like L.A. Lakers Rick Fox?
Yes, he plays Christopher. What was the bald black guy budget on this movie?
Over.
Yeah, because I was gonna say 7 of the 9 people on my screen right now are African American and bald. I'm not complaining, but
Fox,
like,
man.
do we need that many of these guys?
Lots of great kills in this. I think Nicolas Cage literally kills about 50 people.
Nice.
Yeah.
So
A lot of fun. You have good guy turns bad guy turns good guy. You got
the guy, the nerdy tall guy from Grandma's Boy who wears the leather jacket, and the guy in Dodgeball who doesn't know that Steve the Pirate is on their dodgeball team is in this.
Is that Jackie Earl Haley? I think.
No, he's Rorschach from Watchmen.
Which one?
Jackie Earl Haley is Rorschach. Jackie Earl Haley is also the guy in Semi Pro who makes the half court shot, and then
Oh.
Jackie Moon doesn't pay him, doesn't give him the check. What you need to do is find a big bank that cashes big checks.
Oh yeah. You're
Okay.
talking Joel Moore.
Joel David Moore, yeah.
Yeah. What'd you ask?
Nothing.
Oh, I thought you asked me a question about him.
No, I was looking at the cast and I saw he was in it.
Oh yeah.
Good character actor.
He's also an Avatar, I believe.
He is? Nice. Ashley Greene, I'm assuming, plays Nicolas Cage's daughter.
Yes.
What was that fucking
Ron
Cycling we watched?
Perlman is incredible in this.
I do love me some Ron Perlman. Cycly, did you ever watch that movie, The Immaculate Room, with Kate Bosworth and Emile Hirsch, where they're in that room and if they stay there for 90 days, they get like
Yes.
$1 million?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so Ashley Greene is in that, naked, I might add.
Naked. Okay.
You don't remember that?
No, yes, I do. I'm just
Okay.
laughing.
It's like diss on
Naked.
her if you don't remember. Naked. All right, Banner, I'm in. What's this on? Hulu?
Hulu, yeah.
For now, as Bane would say.
For now. Yeah, a lot of fun. I suggest it. It's great. Ron Perlman and the little girl have some incredible scenes. I thought that actually they have some really, like, the two of them acting together is really good. This is a pretty good kid actor. We always talk about how hard it is to find them. So
Yep.
not as bad as you would think, but as awesome as it sounds.
The like still image on the background of it on Bing is Nicolas Cage either drunk or just severely angry when he's holding up like a 1.5 liter glass bottle ready to beat the shit out of somebody with it. Also, because I just Googled the retirement plan, I'm getting an ad for USAA opening a Roth IRA.
You
That's
should.
what Yeah, you should. That's
I mean, you're not
that's just
you're not a
being
service
responsible.
member, but
Well, doesn't Gronk say you don't need to be? I can't remember what he says.
well, you have to be. I'm pretty sure.
Oh.
I thought that's the whole point. They're like always telling Gronk he can't actually use it.
Well, he and I play by different rules.
Roth IRA is the way to go, guys. I mean, it's what you take out, there's no tax. So
Yeah.
we're all,
Well, how
all of
many
a sudden
po-
a financial.
How many podcasts out there can you get platypus talk, and retirement talk? Roth IRA.
It's not
discussion.
many. Maybe
Only
seven.
one.
That dedicated a third of the show to Madam Web.
There we go. All right, retirement plan. I'm in. Cycly, what else you got?
So I just watched Eli Roth's 2023 Thanksgiving.
Yes.
Yes. So I mean, this movie is ridiculous in a lot of ways. I loved it. I had so much fun. This movie is just
Fuck yeah.
if you
Is
like,
it on Netflix?
yeah, it's on Netflix.
Okay.
If you like, again, you've heard us talk about Scream aplenty, how I think it's one of the best horror franchises, consistently. But we've always adored just like the late '90s, early 2000s slasher. I know you did last summer's. I know not really slasher, but Final. Oh my gosh, Final
Destination.
Destination. Why?
Destination.
I wanted to say Final Fantasy. I'm like, that's definitely not that.
That's a thing, though.
It is a thing. This movie is, and maybe because it's Eli Roth who did a lot in the early 2000s, but like this movie took me back to like I was watching
Nice.
to a 2001 slasher. Like it's not anywhere close to being as good as what Scream was. It doesn't have that sense of realism that Scream does, but
it's like Scream adjacent.
It's Scream adjacent. It absolutely puts me. I put it on par, or just at the same level of ridiculousness as like I Know What You Did Last Summer. Maybe slightly more gimmicky, at least maybe in the beginning. But it's a lot of fun, and if you enjoy those like type of slashers that are kind of a little bit of a delicious whodunit, but not taking itself too seriously, a ridiculous amount of like high school friends who wouldn't be friends in real life, and stupid drama, silly family things, and it just has what you want. Like the opening scene is a little over the top. It opens with, this is a Thanksgiving movie, so this isn't a spoiler. Black Friday sales happening on Thanksgiving and the chaos that comes with that. And you get some ridiculous scenes there.
I thought that was, and this isn't a spoiler because like Cyclist said, there's like the first 15 minutes of the movie, but Boehner, you might be interested in this. I thought it was a really cool like impetus for why these killings start, because there is a like department store that has this crazy Black Friday sale, and at it, like people storm the store, and as we always joke, someone dies every Black Friday. Right. And someone is killed at this like storming by a bunch of people acting like fucking idiots. And then the whole rest of the movie, all those people who acted like fucking idiots are getting killed. So you're trying to figure out like, all right, this is clearly someone pissed about what happened at Black Friday, which I've never seen as like a motivation or like a story plot point. I thought that was kind of cool.
Okay.
And I've always said on this pod, I think that we do not have enough, or I mean, barely any Thanksgiving themed movies.
Yeah.
Whether horror or not, right? We really have like Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, Thanksgiving, which is a fantastic film. But like it is surprising of like all the all the films that take place around certain holidays. We have more Groundhog Day, like that kind of stuff. Like one of the biggest American holidays in Thanksgiving. So it was fun to see just that concept tackled. Just on itself, Thanksgiving deserves more respect. But yeah, so like again, if you like that genre, if you can just handle like, again, we're not talking about what's the phrase, Jeff, the new age horror that Scream made fun of, that like the A24 type horror.
Elevated horror.
This is not elevated horror by any means.
This isn't Midsommar.
Yeah, no, not at all. And like I said, this isn't going to be something you walk away from being like, oh, it looks like this did get greenlit for a sequel.
Fuck yes.
So it very much, I could see it doing like the Scream thing where they have a different killer every movie. It takes, it just does its own thing. It follows these people around. Some really good, if you know Eli Roth too. I mean, I'm not the biggest Eli Roth fan. Sometimes I like him and sometimes I don't, but he definitely he likes to show off kills for sure, and there's a lot of that in this movie.
This is one that was on our list, and I don't know, it just slipped by. We haven't got to it yet. Pretty quick watch, right? If I remember when I looked it up.
It's actually a little longer than you'd think. It's not 2 hours, but it's like a good hour 45.
Okay.
I think I think it was probably about 5 minutes too long.
Again, it has the two things that I need in a slasher movie. Overly ambitious, like series of twists in the reveal of the killer, and a cool mask on the person doing the kill.
Mask was great. Yeah.
Which it's perfect.
No, it's always fun to return to these. Like Scream has kept it going. Scream is a little bit of trouble right now, but it just was fun to see this. Yeah, it would have been fun to see this in theaters.
We're gonna have to do a commentary for next Thanksgiving for this.
Absolutely, I think it would be a blast.
Of course.
Good. I'm glad you So two great slasher wrecks for the folks out there, the slasher heads, between this and Valentine. This was way better than Valentine, but also like you kind of don't want your slasher to be too good, you know?
No, well, Scream is the only one because it's so meta is the one that's pulled it off.
Yeah.
There's plenty of slasher that's just like fun to watch, but Scream's the only one that like it knows what it was doing. By the way, were there boobs in Valentine? Just looking at the cast.
I
Wow.
don't think so. Yeah.
Usually
Denise Richards
pulls them out.
plays a pretty promiscuous young
Yeah,
girl.
usually
though,
she pulls them out. That's why I was thinking.
Yeah, she's in a couple risque outfits, but
I guess I'll still watch it.
yeah, she's in a hot tub at one point, but she's got her top on. I have one last thing, and I only want to talk about this on pod because I really liked it, and I don't want to put it in the squad blog. I want to give it a little bit of justice here. Wife and I've seen this movie. It's in my top 100, but we watched the Netflix series One Day. I've also read
I was just told to watch this.
Yeah. So get the tissues ready if you watch this. This works really well as a series because the book uses this trope as well. And this is where the movie struggles a little bit, even though I love it to death. It's in my top 40. But it follows two friends, Dexter and Emma, who are they meet at university in England in 1988, and it picks up their relationship, however it may be, friends, pseudo dating, every year on July 15th, which is a day called St. Swithin's Day, which is basically like their version of Groundhog Day, where if it supposedly says in England, if it rains on St. Swithin's Day, then it's going to rain like all the way through, I don't know, August or October or something.
I mean, it is England. It's not like, it's going to rain every day. Look at my prediction.
Yeah. If you saw White Lotus season 2, Leo Woodall is the star in this. Dexter. He played the douchebag British guy who seduced Haley Lou Richardson's character. This is a much different role for him, and I got to say, buy your stock now because the superhero movies are going to come calling for this guy. He's the next up and comer, I would predict. 14 episodes, all very short, anywhere from 20 to 28 minutes. Picks up with Dexter and Emma each year from 1988 until, I don't know, check my math. When's that end? Like 2002? If it's 14 episodes.
I don't have a calculator.
So does it, I don't care. I mean, you don't have to tell me too much. Is it separate itself from the movie, or does it follow the same plot, but like just way more detailed because it's a show?
Yeah, exactly that. Same plot. A few like minor character adjustments, but nothing dramatic at all. But you definitely like when my wife and I watched the movie again after this, and the movie just feels like it's this, but on like 2 times speed. Like listen to a podcast too fast. Like you almost can't even keep up because no one feels developed. In this, it's great. Like you get plenty of time with all the characters, and again, the episodes are so short. When we saw 14 episodes, we got a little intimidated, but we watched this thing in like 3 days.
Wow.
Really good. Great watch with the wife. Something you guys can watch together and get a lot out of, I think. So One Day, the Netflix series. Already put it up for a Oscar nom for next year for Best TV Show. Loved it.
Nice.
All right, you guys got anything else?
I got one more.
Lay it on us.
I watched The Marvels. Finally came out on Disney Plus, so I watched it because I wasn't going to spend my money to go see this. It wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be.
I like Kamala Khan a lot.
I love Kamala Khan. This movie basically started like Spider-Man Homecoming, though, with like her telling the little story.
Yeah.
Then we saw Captain Marvel in about 45 seconds, which was way better than the actual movie. So that's your first 5 minutes of the movie. After that, until we get to the singing world, because I don't know what the fuck that was, I was having a lot of fun. Great choreography, almost nonstop action up until we get to that weird singing planet.
That was a risk for sure.
Yeah, I'm not saying that it didn't work, but I'm not saying it worked either.
It's funny because to me, that wasn't even my biggest problem with the movie. I won't spoil this. Mine was the cats.
I agree. That was the one thing that I felt like they're like, hey, this was mildly interesting in the first one. We're just gonna shove it down your fucking throat here.
I could have used more of the villain, who actually is Tom Hiddleston's wife in real life.
I did not know that. Yeah, I didn't feel like she was as menacing or as like mad and pissed off and crazy as she should have been. Which we know Marvel traditionally is not great at villains.
Yeah.
But yeah, I agree. She didn't
At
have
least-
enough screen time.
It felt like a case where like Marvel knew that, I can't remember her name, and I'm too lazy to look it up, the character, but they were like, we're not going to utilize her in a future movie, so what's the point in developing her?
Yeah, I guess.
Which is bad philosophy, I agree, but like with someone like Thanos, they build him up to be like the end all be all. This movie felt like so much more about how do we just get the Marvels together, and where they have to stay together, and if she's a plot device to do that, then she'll check all the boxes that we need.
Yes, I agree. I didn't hate Brie Larson as much as I normally hate her.
I loved how Kamala Khan's family was in this so much. They were a highlight of Miss Marvel for me, and so
They
like,
were for me too.
this felt like a case where they would definitely be like relegated or just like used to introduce her to the plot, but they kept them involved throughout the film, which I really
I was surprised how much they were in. I was very surprised they kept him in, and it worked all the way up until the end, I thought.
Yeah.
And the end credit scene, I might have got like a full chub from.
Yeah.
That
I was
was
going to
awesome.
text you after, when I saw it in theaters way back when, I was going to be like, dude, I know you don't want to go to the theaters with this and you have Baby Banner, but like maybe just look up the end credits scene online.
Yeah.
You're going to love it so much.
Yeah, that was awesome. I won't give it away, but I'm very glad that a particular actor was able to come back and reprise his role. That was super cool.
Yep. That was fun. So Cycly mentioned this earlier. Obviously, we're getting like, we've hit superhero fatigue. I don't think anybody would argue that. Marvel this year, I mean, now that Echo's ended, they only have Daredevil, Born Again, and Deadpool 3 coming out. So I think this could be a good year. I'm glad Marvel's taken a step back. Those are two projects I'm really excited about, and the fact that that's all we're getting, I think, is a good sign.
Yes, I agree.
And then I guess X-Men 97, but that's animated, so I wouldn't really count it.
Yeah, and I'm so excited for that. I mean,
Same.
it's just a second season of the X-Men from when we were a kid, or another season of the X-Men from when we were a kid. It's gonna
Yeah.
be fucking amazing. And they've taken their time with it, but I digest.
I know. I think they rushed it, considering the show ended 30 years ago. Okay. Anything else or protein shake?
I don't have.
No,
anything else.
I'd rather move on after I digest.
All right. That brings us to the last part of our show. Our
Do
You Even Lift Bruh segment,
Bruh.
where we ask you a question and answer it as we end the podcast. The question this week, as it has been for, I don't know, 2 years now almost. What are the Bros' top 100 movies of all time? The link to the running spreadsheet is in the description of this podcast. Before we dive into it, though, and we're going to have Cycly pick us up here.
No.
Cycly, how would you describe these top 100 lists? Because a lot of times when people hear that, they're like, oh, the AFI Film Institute's top 100 curated pieces of cinema. It's a little bit different here on the Bros.
God, I
First
love
Squad
how
podcast.
that is definitely what our listeners sound like too. Like for sure.
The average Ian
Cinema.
McKellen is the average Bro.
No
Force
one
Squad.
calls who listens to us calls these films movies. They call it cinema. These are
Valentine is cinema.
these are your favorite movies, and I'm not saying your movies that you think are the greatest movies of all time. They're not even that. They're your favorite movies, and there's no one else's. There's no comparison. This isn't, like you said, top 100 on IMDb or anything like that. It's unique to you, and you don't have to defend yourself, and you don't have to explain yourself, unfortunately, because otherwise Banner would have a lot of things to answer for, and it's very frustrating sometimes hearing some of these, and you just have to let it sit there and take it. So it's a fun exercise. I think everyone should do it.
Very difficult to do, and you hit the nail on the head. You don't have to defend why you put this there. It's your list.
Yeah, if someone asks, why is that on your list? The only defense you need is fuck you.
Yeah.
And that holds up in
that's
court,
where
so I can
that's
see
where
it
it
does.
goes.
All right, so we will pick up with Ronnie Cycly's number 42 film of all time. For a point of reference, and again, the sheet is in the description of this podcast if you want to check out the complete list so far. Banner's number 42 film of all time was Iron Man 2, and mine was All I Want for Christmas. So, Cycly, your 43 was Old School. What is one ahead of that at number 42?
This might be controversial. I don't know how everyone's going to feel about it. It's a very small, low-budget indie film that I don't think many people have heard of. It came out in 1977, so like not our generation, so it doesn't have much impact. It was called A New Hope. Star Wars. Yeah, so this is not my top Star Wars movie on here. This is where it's going to be interesting because this is going to be. We'll see how people feel. Like I think there's always been a debate on what is the best Star Wars movie.
I have a hot take prediction about your Star Wars thing, but I almost don't want to say it just yet.
I mean, it'll be interesting. I mean, I've already had a couple, but I there's one obvious one still left, and but we will get to that when we get to that. But A New Hope, it's the one that started it all. It's the one that wasn't even called Episode 4 when it came out because there was never an idea that was going to be.
That would have confused the hell out of people. Yeah.
Why Episode 4? Yeah, that's a fun fact. Like it was just A New Hope Star Wars, and it was going to be a one-off thing. And one of the things to talk about this movie is not you take out of the movie is what this did. I mean, George Lucas didn't even think it was going to be that big of a hit. Steven Spielberg and George Lucas had a bet on this film. I mean, who would if this movie didn't perform the way it did? How much changes in
The world
in
would be
cinema
different.
history?
Culture.
Oh,
Yeah.
Humans
So-
would be different.
I actually don't think the movie as a whole, like, it isn't one of my favorite Star Wars or movies in terms of like just if you just take the movie for what it is. When you take the impact of what this movie was, is why it's probably a lot higher on my list. And I'm sure there's plenty of people who would put this in their top 5 and top 10, and rightfully so. But when I break down A New Hope, it's a very simple film, and sometimes simple is better. There's not much to the plot, right? Like we really get like 3 or 4 major scenes, right? Like the new Star Wars movies, and like when I think of like Rogue One and stuff, like we jump planets every 3 minutes. We're all over the place. And this one, I mean, is like you start on Tatooine, you get in the ship, you go to one place, and then you end up at the last place. It's like all really straightforward. There's a clear good guy, a clear bad guy, a protagonist you're rooting for. But that's what made it great. Like when I think of like Harry Potter, when I think of these movies and books that like take hold of generations, it's the simple stuff. You don't get those crazy fight scenes that we get in other Star Wars movies. You don't get even like the acting in it isn't so great, but it's the overall context of what this movie was. It's part of the charm.
Yeah.
And I don't know, it's the illusion of like, I don't know what's going on. You're already, I think the biggest thing about this movie, and I felt this as a kid, I didn't get to see it in theaters, obviously we were not alive, but it's that you're thrown in a world that already is so deep and developed, but you have no idea what's really going on.
Yep.
But you feel like it's so big, you're a part of it. And that's what I love about this movie, because yeah, that's why now Star Wars fans are our own, like, who hates Star Wars fans more than Star Wars fans? Who hates Star Wars more than anyone? Star Wars fans. But at this time, it was like, dude, you were taken away quite literally with this, and you're put in a world that, again, now we have 1,000 movies and 1,000 shows on it because there's so much capability. So A New Hope, not the best movie, in my opinion, of the Star Wars franchise, but what it did overall, you can't fault it for that because of what it influenced.
And we'll
I don't
see
think
it-
there's a.
Oh, go ahead, Jeff.
I was real quick. I was going to say I don't think there's an IP that has had a bigger impact on the world than Star Wars Episode 4. A New Hope. If you look at what it spawned.
I don't think so. And we'll see Star Wars mentioned at least 4 more times before we're done with our top 100.
Yeah, I'd be shocked if it doesn't really start peaking. I mean, I have Phantom Menace in my top 100. Like, come on, like that's just ridiculous.
If it were a meme top 100, Phantom Menace would have been probably number 1 or 2.
I think mine was like the late '90s, so like it makes sense. But it's just fun to watch these movies, man, and that's what it's about at the end of the day.
This is one we've talked about, like putting together a list of. It probably would have been fun to predict beforehand, but like movies that we're pretty sure all 5 bros will have in their top 100. I would be utterly shocked if this one isn't in everybody's. Although I will say you're the first one to have it.
Yeah, I'm not shocked
Yeah.
about that.
I'm not
I'm
shocked
just-
about that either. I think in the next 10 slots we'll see it again.
I mean, I said this. I had Return of the Jedi a little earlier in my top 100. Like those movies again, I respect. I think I had that earlier than a lot of other people too. It's just like I just sometimes when I'm rewatching it, they don't give me that like maybe because I wasn't a child and experiencing it the first time. I didn't watch A New Hope. I already knew who Vader was. I already knew that kind of stuff. So that probably took away from it a little bit. Versus like we already talked about filmmaking in the 70s and 80s, how raw and like you're like, holy shit, how did they even do this? That got taken away from us.
Sadly. All right. That's your number 42. Banner, what is your number 41 just ahead of Iron Man 2?
The Mummy, with Brendan Fraser. I just loved this movie growing up. I watched this movie all the fucking time.
This movie scared the shit out of me.
The second one scared me. This one didn't scare me as much.
Dude,
Second
the
one has
Mummy
some.
guy was.
Yeah, it was. The second one scared me. This one didn't scare me as bad. But I don't know. There was just something about it. I loved it. I always watched it. I've always been. I want to go see the pyramids, and I want to go to Egypt. I think it would be cool. Somewhere I've always wanted to go, and I don't know the whole idea of a mythical city made of or just covered in treasure. There's all this treasure disappears unless you know how to get there. It's kind of like it's very piratey.
This is just like your textbook fun summer adventure film in the late 90s.
Yes.
And Brendan Fraser is perfect in this role. The first time I ever saw Rachel Weisz in anything.
Me too, probably.
So that probably helped. But yeah, the main mummy villain, like when he like blows the shit out of his mouth, I saw that in the trailer and I was like, fuck no.
Which is hilarious because like traditionally I don't like the scary things and you do.
Yeah, well, when I was a kid, I was not gonna fuck with that. This how long after this did the sequel come out? 01? Was it 2 years?
Yeah, 2, maybe 3.
Maybe
I like
4.
this.
Am I? Yeah, it was
5.
Maybe 5.
maybe 5.
I like the sequel too.
Yeah.
Best CGI ever with The Rock at the end.
Like, and this is like to me like what we were talking about Thanksgiving being like taking me back into like late 90s and early 2000s slashers. Like when I think of the types of movies Mummy, I get transported back again. Like I think of National Treasure and things like that. I'm like those kind of like just ridiculous adventure movies that
You can't
don't
help
make
but love
sense.
them.
You can't. They're so fun and they take the guilt out of everything. They turn your brain off. Like I wish. I don't know if we're ever gonna get back to that, but that was great.
I agree, and I don't mean to be like a back in my day guy because I'm certainly not saying it's better. I'm just saying because it's nostalgic to us, I miss it. But yeah, if like a movie like The Mummy, because they come out every year, when that comes out now, no one bats an eye at it. When it came out in 1999, it like had this cult following that produced 2 sequels, and everyone's like, "Dude, that's so fucking fun! You have to go see The Mummy." I remember like everyone talking about this at school.
Yeah.
And nowadays, if this movie came out, kids would be like, "And."
Dude, okay, this sounds again. This is going to be me being a curmudgeon back in my day. Jeff, you're a teacher. Do you hear kids talk about movies like? Because that's what we talked about all the time.
They're so unimpressed with everything.
See, that's what it is to me.
There's no magic in
And I
it.
can't blame them. I get what their world they're coming up. They have their phones. They have everything. It's not.
Well,
I'm
they're
not
the
blaming
Avengers
another generation, but it's so
Endgame
crazy.
generation. They're like, okay, I'll go see a superhero movie, but do 32 superheroes unite at the end of the movie on screen? I was like, dude, when we saw Spider-Man in 2001, it was just him versus Green Goblin, and I had my first erection of my life for 2 hours the whole time. Like now, you get fucking portals that open up with it. Like you don't even get it, bro. You don't know what it was like.
You had a Spider-Man
know what
movie
I
with
went
3
through.
fucking Spider-Mans in it. Okay, I don't want to hear it.
Just show them Batman and Robin. Be like, this is what I grew up on. You pieces of shit.
To kind of tie everything together, me teaching and kids watching movies. In history last week, we were learning about a guy named John Calhoun, and I told my kids, doesn't he look like Willem Dafoe, the Green Goblin? And they were like, what? And I was like, actually, you do know him because he was in the most recent Spider-Man movie. They're like, oh, yeah, okay.
Willem. Guys, you ever realize Willem Dafoe sounds like a frog?
Little-
Willem.
Banner, you don't have to. Is the second Mummy higher than this on your list? Is it coming up?
I don't think so, but I don't remember.
Okay.
Hold on. I can tell you in just a second.
Obviously, don't say which number, but I do I'm kind of interested here. We're getting into like the nitty gritty.
No, it is not.
Okay, I was gonna say
It is
this
not.
This is the end. Like
Yeah.
we're top 40 after this, so we're not fucking around at all.
Yeah, I used to listen to the America's Top 40 every Sunday when I was a kid.
Was that Casey Kasem? The guy that did
Yeah, it was
Shaggy's voice?
Casey Kasem. Yeah,
Nice.
that's when you know you're in the real deal now.
All right, Banner. Anything else on the Mummy?
No, if you haven't seen it in a while, go revisit.
Have you seen the Jet Li one, the third one, the Dragon Emperor?
Yeah, not great.
Not great, but again, guilty pleasure film for me. I don't mind at the end when all the Yetis come in.
Yeah. It's fine. I think that the whole movie is kind of flawed from the beginning, so it kind of is what it is.
Recasting Rachel Weisz again. I get
Bad
why
choice. I didn't like bringing their son into it.
Yeah, that was bad. If she didn't want to come back, they should have just been like, maybe that's a sign. We don't need to make this.
Yeah.
She's got nothing else going on.
All right, my number 41, just ahead of All I Want for Christmas, is the movie Groundhog Day from 1993. This is I think it created a subgenre, the time loop movie, which has actually been, I don't want to say had a resurgence, but it's been popularized in the last 4 or 5 years.
Yeah.
Some really good examples of it too. Some really bad ones. Palm Springs is one I really, really liked.
I love Palm Springs.
Palm Springs is incredible. In fact, Palm Springs is on my list. Let me find it here.
That
Oh, no.
movie was so fun.
Palm Springs was my 101, actually, now that I remember.
Wow.
Wow. Just missed out. Sucks.
Groundhog
Andy
Day
Samberg is losing it right now.
Yeah, he is. Kristen Miliotti's texting me too. Bill Murray, perfect in this role. With the just the way that a guy with his deadpan and dry sense of humor would handle being stuck in a time loop with a level of cynicism that's almost hard to fathom and comprehend. Andy McDowell just did it for me, in the early 90s. Chris Elliott, hilarious as always. And I think this movie does an awesome job of it takes the concept of the time loop and it has a lot of fun with it, but it also pretty seamlessly, and this is a credit to Harold Ramis, the late director, pretty seamlessly goes into some pretty serious stuff too. When Phil is realizing the mortality angle, this homeless guy is going to die every single day that I do this, no matter what I do. And I've neglected, not that he could have made a difference, but I never even said a word to this guy, and I saw him every single day, and his life is ending on this day. And then if anyone hasn't seen it, obviously it's 30 years old, but the way that he ends up figuring out what's happening with the loop, and again, I like how they don't explain too much with it, more so than anything, but the conclusion I think is really satisfying. And if you want a movie that's I think Cycli has talked about this with a lot of good films, you can take as much out of this as you want. You can look at this as metaphorical, metaphysical, and as deep a film as you want, and there's a lot of really good conversation pieces. Or you can look at it as just Bill Murray is living the same day over and over again, and it's pretty fucking fun. You can get as little out of this as you want to, is why I think it works so well.
Yeah, fantastic film, fantastic concept. I think it's a very human concept. How many times have we gone to bed wishing to replay something, have the day over, what would you do differently, playing scenarios even from years past later on? It's just it's just fun to visit that. And it's funny that it Jeff, you just said that how this genre, it wasn't really a genre up till about 5 years ago, and then all of a sudden we have a bunch of things like this. I just finished a book that was in under this genre. It was in my wife's book club, and she was telling me about it. I was like, actually, this is the first time she read a book for a book club. I was like, kind of want to read that.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like that. And it's just it's just very human at the end of the day. Obviously there's a lot of elements of humor and ridiculous, the way he kills himself and things like that anyone else would behave. But there's something just so raw and pure emotion that comes with this concept outside of it just being a comedy that I think everyone can relate to.
And like the phases you go through, like the loss of hope, where you're like, I'm gonna be in this forever, and like the way that you start behaving as a result, and then you kind of come back around, and you're like, all right, let's fucking figure this out. I've done ridiculous stuff for like a month. Let's try and get through it.
It was fun at first. Now it's not. I'm over it.
And the way he fucks with people, the quote from the top of Ned Ryerson, the guy that tries to sell him insurance every single day. He's like, today I'm just gonna make out with Ned Ryerson when I see him. And we're gonna see how he reacts to it.
Yeah, that's what I would. I would just do the weirdest things. Like I was
we,
just like,
we know you.
because
Yeah.
infinite possibilities. You can literally replay a scenario every single day and get a different result. It'd be
Because the worst case scenario, I think that's what he says in Palm Springs. He's like, I do crazy shit because the worst case scenario is only gonna last another, 10 hours.
Yeah.
And
Restart it.
Palm Springs, it's Groundhog Day, not Palm Springs, but I love the part where he's like, I figured out that when I go to sleep, it resets it. So one time he did like crystal meth and managed to stay up for like 36 straight hours. He's like, I got all the way to Mexico and then I passed out behind the wheel of a car or something. Groundhog Day. All right, we will end with Cycle, your number 41 movie of all time, just ahead of Star Wars Episode 4, A New Hope.
Yeah, Martin Scorsese's The Departed. Just
Nice.
fucking incredible. I mean, if we were doing see, this is where like it's like if we were doing what my decision of like what is the greatest movies of all time, this would probably be a lot higher. It's just like not a very rewatchable film, but it's just one that like sits with you for so long. Just the performances in general. I mean, the cast is phenomenal. I mean, Mark Wahlberg. This is probably my favorite Mark Wahlberg fan. I've never been that big of a fan of Mark Wahlberg, and like
This is his best role.
his best role. But like I quote my favorite line, maybe in one of my favorite top 10 lines of every time. It's like, maybe not. Maybe go fuck yourself.
Maybe
like
go fuck yourself.
My wife and I text that to each other like anytime we ask like, hey, like ask a question. That's and the way he will like walk by and just flip Matt Damon off or like Leonardo DiCaprio and it just that movie the build up the entire time, the tension, you don't know who you're rooting for. Every character has pros and cons. Every character is so human and have their own demons. It's peak Martin Scorsese. It's peak acting from these actors. And I mean, if you haven't seen it, I'm not going to spoil it, but the ending
wild.
It's just like
so insane.
Yeah.
It just it's one of those movies. I want to. It's not a twist, right? Like there's movies that like, whoa, I can't believe how that ended. This movie just like the second it ends, you're just like, I gotta sit in silence for 5 minutes. Like that was a lot. No one is spared in terms of like justice and peace, and it's just a great cop thriller drama. And it's peak cinema. I know we kind of made fun of the cinema thing, but it really is. Like this is exactly what Scorsese does. And so yeah, it's every category you can take when it comes to cast, writing, impact, all of it. Departed is one of the greatest movies ever.
Maybe my favorite Scorsese film. Wolf of Wall Street has grown on me over the years, but I still think this one is pretty far ahead of that.
Yeah, Wolf of Wall Street's awesome. So great.
You hate it.
That sounded so sarcastic.
Yeah. So just looking at this, shockingly, Cycle, you're the first one to have this on their list. But I definitely think it's coming up for at least for Thurman and Geiger.
I would imagine for the two I said tonight, we're going to hear a few times.
Yeah. I looked it up on my list. I have it at number 151, and this just goes to show you how these lists are. Banner, the film right ahead of it. And again, you look at this in a vacuum, you say Horns is fucking high, which I probably am. Right ahead of it is Ambulance.
Ooh, I love Ambulance.
I love Ambulance too. And then
someone just like turns this off and goes, I'm never listening to the podcast.
Done. And then at 149 is Alien, which I just saw.
That's awesome. Here, give me 2 seconds. I'll tell you what mine is.
It's all connected.
Someone's like, so we talked about platypi. Whatever.
One guy said Ambulance was better than The Departed.
Yeah,
which I stand by. I'm not sitting. I have Hook higher than The Departed on my list. Not.
Well, Hook, yeah, that makes sense.
And I have the Muppets ahead of all of them.
Well, that is, you can't dispute that.
The Muppets is great. The original one from like the 70s?
No, the Jason Segel one.
Oh, okay. That one's great too, though.
From 2011. Banner, did you look up The Departed?
Yeah, I'll yield to another time.
Is that
Good,
low?
yeah,
Or is it higher or lower? Is that why?
It'll come up later.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Yeah.
I guess that'll do it, guys. For episode 219, we talked some questionable comic book movies, which we're going to revisit in our tournament. That'll be linked in the description. Top 100 list is there as well. I think we want to leave the people with maybe just some advice. Banner, you want to just stick with the usual, or did anything else happen recently that you need to get on your soapbox about?
No, I don't think so. I think, like, guys, let's just continue to, when you see the lights, pull over to the side, let it pass. Don't tailgate them. Let's just get out of the way. You never know who's in the back of that ambulance. Maybe your house is on fire. That's why that fire truck is going.
Yeah. Okay, fire truck. There we go.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
Yeah, when the ambulance puts its lights on, it's not trying to race you, bro. It's trying to get you out of the way.
Yeah. So let's just remember, pull over for emergency vehicles, please. We appreciate it.
Yeah. Slightly, how about you?
Yeah, usually I go with the fast lane as a passing lane on the left lane, but the city I live in, and I saw it today, and that's why I want to talk about it. I don't think they are taught this in driver's ed. Guys, if you come up to an intersection and the intersection has lost power and is flashing red lights,
Oh God.
that
Four-way stop.
means it's a four-way stop, and the right of way goes to the section on your right, and repeated so. This is not just like a one-time off. In this city, when an intersection has lost its power, people just go, and there is no stopping, and it's chaos. And I just do not understand how these people either were not taught this.
What do they think happens when everyone goes?
No, it's insane. Like they today, one street was all going, like all these cars, like no one stopped, and they acted like they had a green light even though it was flashing red. Like it was just like, so the other intersection couldn't do anything, and yeah, it was just pure chaos. So I'm like, yeah, guys, not a intersection not working is a four-way stop. It's that simple.
That's embarrassing for that whole city.
Yeah.
Can't believe I'm going there in a few weeks.
Yeah.
I know.
Way to call them out.
Speaking of embarrassing, guys, when you go get your hair cut, like, let's just play it safe, okay? If you're above the age of, I'll say 16, there's no need to try anything new. And especially, and I'm sorry if you're a hair care product salesman out there listening to this, no one needs a $60 bottle of conditioner, okay? There's no sales pitch you can make to me that's going to make sense. So please stop trying to.
That's all you need.
And that better be shampoo and conditioner.
Oh yeah, you don't get the ones that are like saran wrap together?
Oh, I have like the one bottle. It's both.
One time I bought the both bottle, and my wife was like, no woman in the world will ever use a bottle that has both in one. I was like, what's the difference? They're like, no.
So I will say this.
Yeah,
I
be
think
careful
this is
with
more
that
acceptable. I buy the one that's like hair, body, and face wash, but I just use it as body wash.
Same thing.
I don't use it in my hair or whatever, or my face especially. That's weird that it's
Gross.
Like,
You
what
don't
is it,
wash
toothpaste
all
also?
the same thing.
Nope, I don't wash my face at all ever. So.
Yeah. What's the point of that?
So you get platypus talk, Roth IRAs,
And
ambulance
hygiene.
is better than The Departed, and hygiene. You can't find that in one place, guys. Okay, it's like a Chinese buffet. Why is there pizza and chicken wings at the end? We don't know, but you put them on your plate, didn't you? Fucking
Of course you
Americans. All right, for our legal counsel, Ronnie Cycli, and the mad scientist, Brian Banner, I'm the mayor, Jeff Hornacek. We're the Bro4 Squad podcast. Thank you guys so much for checking us out. Follow us on Twitter. I'm not going to call it X. Instagram, Threads. Okay, I'll call that one Threads. At Bro4 Squad. Type in Bro Force Squad as 3 separate words on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, YouTube. You'll find us there. And check out our website, bro4squad.com. Till next time, thanks for listening to us. Our next episode, 220, is the 7th edition of the first annual Broscars. I can't exactly remember what we called it, but it's our annual movie awards show. Be sure to check that one out. We will see you there at the red carpet. Banner's already started pre-gaming.
Naturally. I really want an egg roll.
Ooh, egg roll sounds great.
Yeah.
He is
I love
so
this one.
tired.
Duck sauce. Poor Zappy.
Oh.
He's literally like, I will hold him, and he